JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood. Phantom Blood was the very first part in Hirohiko Araki's long-running franchise. It sets the stage for the Joestar family saga and introduces us to the fateful rivalry between the Joestars and Dio Brando. We'll get into this a little later, but before we get any further, make sure to subscribe to this channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you never miss another update. Now without further ado, let's get it. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood was created by Hirohiko Araki. The season is divided into two arcs: Phantom Blood, set in 1880s England, and Battle Tendency, set in 1930s Europe. The manga was first published by Shueisha in Weekly Shonen Jump under the title JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1, Jonathan Joestar, His Youth, on January 1st, 1987, and ran until October 26, 1987. Part 2, Battle Tendency, was serialized in Shueisha's Weekly Shonen Jump magazine from November 2nd, 1987 to March 27th, 1989. The anime first aired in Japan on Tokyo MX on October 6, 2012 and ran until April 6, 2013, totaling 26 episodes. So, let's get into the story. Alright, so it's 1868 and we've got George Joestar, a rich dude who almost dies in a carriage accident. But then he gets saved by the shady guy, Dario Brando, who was actually trying to rob him. George, being as gullible as a toddler with candy, is like, "You're a hero, I owe you my life." Fast forward a bit, Dario croaks, and George decides to adopt Dario's son, Dio. Big mistake, my guy. Dio shows up at the Joestar mansion like, "Yo, I'm here to ruin everybody's life." And oh, does he deliver. He bullies Jonathan Joestar, aka JoJo, burns his dog alive, yes, he's that evil, and then he has the audacity to steal JoJo's girlfriend's first kiss. Like, bro, who does that? But don't worry, JoJo's not having it. He fights back in the most Jonathan Joestar way possible, being the good, noble guy who just wants to live his life. Meanwhile, Dio is playing 4D chess, trying to get rid of Jonathan and steal the family fortune. Dio's like, "I'll just poison George, but make it slowly so we can drag out this drama for several episodes." Eventually, Dio decides to kick it up a notch and take over the Joestar family fortune. How does he do this, you ask? With a little thing called poison.
You need to leave!
Dio starts poisoning George, and while George is slowly dying, Dio's chilling in the background like, you know what? This guy really should have just left me in the streets. Jonathan, of course, starts noticing that something's off, but Dio's got a backup plan. A creepy ancient artifact known as the Stone Mask. And just like any sane person who finds an ancient artifact with a ton of weird carvings and mysterious powers in someone's house, Dio's like, what's the worst that could happen? Well, what happens is that Dio slaps that mask on, turns into a vampire, and starts wreaking havoc like a whole new level of extra. Now, he's immortal. He's got glowing red eyes, and he can regenerate limbs like he's some kind of comic book supervillain. So now that Dio's a vampire, he decides to really spice things up. He kills George, steals the Joestar mansion, and makes it his vampire lair. Meanwhile, JoJo's left to deal with the fallout and fight back. Enter Will A. Zeppeli, a Haman master, and Speedwagon, who's basically there to be a punching bag and cheerleader for Jonathan. But you know what? He's got that snarky charm, so he's fine. Zeppeli teaches Jonathan the ancient art of Haman, which is basically sunlight breathing that lets you turn your punches into energy blasts of sunshine. Think of it like super yoga breathing. So now Jonathan's got this new weapon in his arsenal, and he's ready to take on Dio. The duo sets off like a weird buddy cop movie to track down Dio and his army of creepy undead creatures. Along the way, they face off against Dio's undead minions, including the infamous Jack the Ripper. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. This show is really going for it. Jack the Ripper is literally just hanging out as one of Dio's lackeys, and it's all kinds of creepy. But Jonathan's like, I've got Haman, you've got bad taste in friends. Bah! So he does what any self-respecting Joestar would do, punches his way through every single one of Dio's minions, and moves on. Zeppeli dies in the most dramatic way possible, passing his powers to JoJo like he's handing over the family Wi-Fi password. Finally, JoJo and Dio have their big showdown on top of the castle. It's epic, it's fiery, and JoJo wins. Kinda. Dio's body is destroyed, but his head survives because he just can't take a hint. JoJo thinks he's finally getting a break, he marries his boo Erina, and they go on a honeymoon cruise. But guess who's back?
Surprise, motherfucker.
Dio, with his head in a jar. JoJo sacrifices himself to save Erina, who escapes with a baby in a coffin. Don't ask. Dio's head, meanwhile, is left floating in a coffin in the ocean, still alive and ready to cause more chaos. You just know this guy's like, I'll be back. And just like that, the Joestar family drama continues. So fast forward to 1939 and we meet Joseph Joestar, Jonathan's grandson. If Jonathan was a polite kid who always raised his hand in class, Joseph is the kid throwing paper airplanes at the teacher. He's loud, cocky, and way too clever for his own good. Joseph's journey starts when he learns about the Pillar Men, ancient muscle gods who invented the stone mask and have been sleeping for thousands of years. These guys are like the vampire OGs. There's Santana, who's basically a flexing mannequin, and his bros, AC/DC, Wamu, and Cars. They want the Red Stone of Asia, which will make them invincible. Joseph teams up with Caesar Zeppeli, the OG Zeppeli's grandson, and together they start training under Lisa, a Haman master, and Joseph's long-lost mother. Surprise, you've been training with your mom the whole time, Joseph. The trio sets off to take down the Pillar Men, and boy are things about to go down. The first Pillar Man they go after is Santana, and let me tell you, this dude is weird. He's basically a rock that can move around and is so strong that it takes the combined might of Joseph, Caesar, and Lisa to defeat him. But the real fun starts when they go up against AC/DC. AC/DC isn't just strong, he's got fire powers, and he's the ultimate drama queen. Every time he gets injured, he's like, I'll never forgive you. And then he's back with a vengeance. But Joseph's not here for the drama. He's like, you know what? Let me make this quick. And with a mix of clever trickery and some very lucky punches, Joseph takes AC/DC down. But then things get serious. Wamu, who has a code of honor, because why not, poisons Joseph and gives him a month to live. Yeah, Wamu really likes the drama. Joseph and Caesar decide to take the Pillar Men in an epic showdown of chariot races, mind games, and more drama than a reality TV show. This isn't your typical fight, it's a battle of strategy, and Joseph pulls out all the stops. But then, Caesar dies. That's right, Caesar, Joseph's new best friend, gets killed in battle. He sacrifices himself to save Joseph. It's heartbreaking. And just to make things worse, Joseph's like, oh, you know, I'll avenge Caesar and take down the Pillar Men. I've got this. You can almost hear him saying, hold my juice box, I'm gonna save the day. But Cars? Oh, Cars is built different. He uses the red stone to become the ultimate life form. Now he's basically unkillable. Great, Joseph's cooked, but he's got brains for days. In the final showdown, he tricks Cars into getting blasted into space by a volcanic eruption. Cars gets frozen in space forever, and Joseph's like, yeah, I totally planned that. Sure, buddy. It's the kind of ending only JoJo could pull off, and we all love it. The season ends with Joseph chilling in the 1980s, ready for more adventures. Meanwhile, Dio's coffin in the last ending scene gets fished out of the ocean, because apparently this man just refuses to die. And that's the chaotic, ridiculous, and totally awesome start of the Joestar saga. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders was created by Hirohiko Araki and is widely celebrated for introducing the concept of stands. Set primarily in 1989, it follows Jotaro Kujo, his grandfather, Joseph Joestar, and a band of allies on a globe-trotting journey from Japan to Egypt. Their ultimate goal? To defeat the resurrected Dio Brando once and for all. The Stardust Crusaders manga was originally serialized in Shueisha's weekly Shonen Jump magazine from April 3, 1989 to April 27, 1992. Its anime adaptation first aired on Tokyo MX starting April 5, 2014 until June 20, 2015, spanning a total of 48 episodes split into 2 parts. So, let's get into the story. In 1987, Jotaro Kujo, a teenager with a bad attitude and an even worse sense of fashion, decides jail is the place to be. Why? Because he thinks he's got an evil ghost following him around. His mom, Holly Kujo, freaks out and calls her dad, Joseph Joestar, to come sort this mess out. Joseph shows up with his buddy from Egypt, Mohammed Abdal, and they drop the bombshell that Jotaro is not haunted. He's got a stand named Star Platinum, renowned for its incredible strength and precision. Abdal and Joseph have developed stands of their own as well. The reason stands are showing up now? Dio Brando. That's right, the Joestar family's worst nightmare is back from the dead. Sort of. Dio's been chilling underwater for a century, attached to the body of Jonathan Joestar, Joseph's grandfather. Now that he's up and about, everyone is developing stands. The problem is, Holly's stand is killing her because she's too kind and gentle to control it. The only solution? A road trip to Egypt to put Dio back in his coffin. Enter Noriaki Kakyoin, a high schooler with the stand Hierophant Green. Controlled by Dio's mind-altering flesh buds, Kakyoin attacks Jotaro with his tentacle-shooting stand. Jotaro, being a walking brick wall with fists, punches the evil right out of Kakyoin and removes the flesh bud. Now free from Dio's mind control, he joins the team because honestly, what else is he gonna do? First, they hop on a plane and a giant beetle stand called Tower of Grey feasts on innocent passengers. Kakyoin and Jotaro work together to eliminate Tower of Grey in midair, but the damage forces an emergency landing. The emergency landing is a vibe killer, so the crew heads to Hong Kong by sea, where Jotaro slaps some sense into Polnareff, another one of Dio's goons, who uses the stand Silver Chariot. Polnareff does a 180 and vows to defeat Dio. In Singapore, Polnareff's fancy French act gets him nearly murked by a possessed doll, Ebony Devil, but he slices it into plastic shreds. Meanwhile, Joseph learns from a cryptic television message that someone might still be loyal to Dio. That suspicion soon proves true when Rubber Soul appears, using his stand Yellow Temperance to disguise himself as Kakyoin. This stand tries to consume Jotaro, but Star Platinum's power combined with Jotaro's quick thinking forces Rubber Soul to surrender. Eventually, Polnareff tries to solo revenge on Jay Gill, aka Mr. Centerfold, the chump who offed his sister and sent him crashing out in the first place. But he's teamed up with another stand user named Whole Horse. Abdal sacrifices himself to save Polnareff, so Polnareff goes ballistic and chops up Centerfold's stand Hangman. Whole Horse then runs for his life, but Polnareff tries to stop him until Whole Horse's girlfriend Nina pops up, letting Whole Horse escape. Joseph decides they'd better keep moving toward Egypt anyway, but oh no, Nina's blood leaves a weird pimple thing on Joseph's arm. Ugh! Next stop, Varanasi. Joseph's weird bump grows a freaky face, and it turns out to be the Empress stand, and it murders the local doctor. Joseph's in trouble because the cops think he's the killer. The Empress even tries to slice Joseph up. He fights back with his stand Hermit Purple with some clever thinking. He traps that ugly growth in sticky tar, then rips it to shreds. When Nina also gets torn to bits, Joseph's all, "I tried to tell the hoe." Passing through Pakistan, they pick up a young stowaway named Anne. Skipping ahead, eventually on their journey, a red car tries to push them off a cliff. Turns out this evil car is a stand called Wheel of Fortune. It soaks them with gasoline, tries to barbecue Jotaro, but Jotaro digs underground with Star Platinum, and Wheel of Fortune goes boom at the bottom of the cliff. They tie up the driver, ZZ, steal his car, and keep going. And the team resumes their journey. They keep on rolling until they reach a creepy fog town. Enter Enya, an old lady who acts all sweet and innocent, but spoiler alert, she's totally evil. She's got the stand Justice, a fog that can turn dead folks into zombies and make freaky holes in people's bodies. She uses Justice to force Whole Horse to shoot himself and then goes after Polnareff, making him lick a nasty toilet. But Jotaro busts in, inhales all the spooky fog, and knocks Enya out cold. They load Enya up and head off while Whole Horse, who somehow survived, is like, "You guys should really kill her." But whatever. Continuing by horse-drawn carriage, they encounter Steely Dan, a stand user who's the lover's stand, implants a flesh bud in both Enya's brain and Joseph's. Enya dies before she can reveal any of Dio's secrets, while Joseph suffers in pain. If anyone attacks Dan, Joseph will feel the damage. Jotaro is forced to do Dan's bidding, running errands and stealing stuff, while Polnareff and Kakyoin shrink their stands to find the lovers inside Joseph. After some trickery involving clones, Kakyoin flushes out the lovers, saving Joseph's life. Jotaro then goes bananas on Dan with Star Platinum. Boom! Problem solved. Next, the gang trots across the Arabian desert on camels. Suddenly, the sun doesn't set and cranks up the heat big time. Surprise! The sun is another stand called the Sun, blasting them with scorching rays. They hide in a hole and Kakyoin notices a weird reflection. Jotaro chucks a rock at it, cracks it like glass, and the sun's user is KO'd on the spot. Later, Kakyoin dreams of a baby named Manish Boy, whose Death 13 stand drags victims into a nightmarish dream world. Stands are typically unusable in dreams unless summoned before dozing off. Manish Boy nearly kills them, but Kakyoin smuggles Hierophant Green into the dream, turning the tables. With Death 13 beaten, no one else remembers the ordeal upon waking. But Kakyoin does. Feeling salty, he feeds his evil baby his own poop. Eventually on the island, Polnareff meets a magic lamp and rubs it. Out pops Cameo, a genie stand named Judgment. Polnareff wishes for gold and then tries to bring back his sister and Avdol. Not a good plan. Zombie versions of them appear and try to eat him. But guess who's actually alive? Avdol. He was never really dead, just badly hurt. Avdol roasts Cameo with his stand Magician's Red, and he and Polnareff piss in the user's breathing tubes as revenge. Taking a submarine to Egypt, they battle High Priestess, a stand that disguises itself as various metal objects on board. Forced to escape in scuba gear, they emerge only to find High Priestess morphing into enormous jaws on the ocean floor. Star Platinum smashes those teeth, defeating the stand user. Finally, in Egypt, they are met by the Speedwagon Foundation's representatives, who introduce Iggy, a grumpy dog with a sand manipulating stand called the Fool. Almost immediately, they're ambushed by Endul, whose water-based stand kills the Speedwagon agents and injures Kakyoin and Avdol. Reluctant to help, Iggy tries to flee until Jotaro forces cooperation. Together, they corner Endul, who chooses to end his own life rather than betray Dio. Yo, bro is glazing Dio for real though. Meanwhile, two wacky brothers named Oingo and Boingo plan to kill the group with poison tea and bombs that look like oranges. Because normal bombs are boring, obviously. But everything goes haywire when Polnareff sneezes, causing Oingo to step on his own exploding orange bomb. Afterwards, sailing down the Nile, they confront Anubis, a sentient sword stand that possesses anyone who wields it. A boy named Chaka becomes its first host, then a barber named Khan, and finally, Polnareff himself. Jotaro manages to break Anubis in two, and the ruined sword plunges into the river. Soon after, Joseph and Avdol run into Maria, whose stand is the goddess Bast, who looks like an electrical outlet that magnetizes anyone who touches it. As metal objects fly towards them, they chase Mariah, accidentally drawing more and more metallic junk to their bodies. Eventually, they corner her, causing a massive pile of metal to collapse on her. Next, a sinister man named Alessi appears, employing his stand Set, which can revert its victims to younger versions of themselves. Polnareff is reduced to a child and barely evades fatal injury. Even Jotaro is briefly affected, but Star Platinum remains formidable enough to knock Alessi out. Restored to normal, they continue on using Hermit Purple to snap a spirit photo showing Dio's whereabouts in Cairo. When they reach Cairo, they bump into a gambler named Daniel J. Darby. He takes Polnareff's soul and Joseph's soul in rigged bets, storing them in poker chips. Jotaro challenges him in a poker match and basically bluffs so hard that Darby freaks out and folds, freeing everyone's souls. Their next big problem is Whole Horse teaming up with Boingo again, but that quickly ends with Whole Horse shooting himself by accident, courtesy of Boingo's crazy predictions. Iggy, then wandering near Dio's mansion, is attacked by Pet Shop, a hawk whose stand, Horus, manipulates ice. Pet Shop ruthlessly kills local dogs and tries to freeze Iggy to death. Iggy sacrifices part of his paw to escape, then outsmarts Pet Shop, causing the hawk's own ice blast to blow him up. Though crazy wounded, Iggy survives thanks to a nearby kid. Around the same time, Jotaro, Joseph, and Kakyoin are dragged into a video game contest by Terrence T. Darby, Daniel's younger brother. Kakyoin loses his soul, but Jotaro uses clever tactics to defeat Terrence, recovering Kakyoin's soul. Finally, the biggest bad guy's top henchman, Vanilla Ice, shows up. He uses a stand called Cream that erases anything it gobbles up. Avdol bravely pushes Polnareff and Iggy out of harm's way and gets cooked. Polnareff eventually defeats Vanilla Ice in a brutal fight, but Iggy also dies. Shook from their losses, it's now time for the ultimate battle with Dio. Back at Dio's mansion, Jotaro, Joseph, and Kakyoin come across the vampire Loser, who is forced to lead the three to Dio after his attempt to disguise himself as an innocent woman failed. Meanwhile, Polnareff, having patched up his injuries, comes face to face with Dio. He tries to climb these spooky stairs, but every time he goes up, he's right back where he started. Turns out, Dio's stand, the world, is messing with him. Luckily, Jotaro and the gang show up just in time to say, "Not today, Satan!" Then everyone jumps out the window to escape Dio's creepy vibes. Dio hijacks a limo and forces Senator Wilson Phillips to chase after Joseph and Kakyoin. Kakyoin tries to trap Dio with Hierophant Green's wire trick, but Dio slices through it like warm butter, and Kakyoin's down for the count. Before he fades away, he points to a clock, helping Joseph figure out that Dio can stop time. Joseph tries to warn Jotaro, but Dio stabs him with a knife. Jotaro faces Dio and ends up also being able to move a bit during the time stoppage. Surprise! Dio chucks the knife around, but Jotaro fakes being dead, letting Polnareff sneak in and nearly skewer Dio's brain. Dio then snacks on Joseph's blood and powers up even more. He drops a huge road roller on Jotaro, and Jotaro stops time at the last second, shattering Dio's leg and destroys the world. Turns out, Star Platinum is a similar type of stand as the world. They revive Joseph with leftover Joestar blood, and Sunlight cooks Dio for good. With their journey finally over, Polnareff returns to France, while Jotaro and Joseph return home to Holly, who is making a complete recovery. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond is Unbreakable was created by Hirohiko Araki. The manga was first published by Shueisha in Weekly Shonen Jump magazine from May 4th, 1992 to December 4th, 1995. The anime adaptation was produced by David Production and first aired in Japan on April 2nd, 2016 until December 24th, 2016, totaling 39 episodes. So, let's get into the story. It's 1999 and everything looks as calm as a cat taking a nap in the sun. But, as we all know, nothing in JoJo world stays peaceful for long. One day, a guy named Jotaro Kujo shows up. Jotaro is tall, serious, and likes wearing a fancy hat that blends right into his hair. He's basically a walking muscle who can stop time with a giant ghost buddy called Star Platinum. You know, normal stuff. Jotaro rolls into Morio like he owns the place because he's on a mission. He's hunting for a teenager named Josuke Higashikata. Why Josuke? Because Josuke happens to be the secret love child of Jotaro's grandpa, which makes Jotaro Josuke's nephew, even though Jotaro is older. Yes, it's confusing, but just nod your head and roll with it. So Jotaro tells Josuke about the Joestar family history, vampires, ancient artifacts, punching ghosts, the usual. He warns Josuke that the town has become a magnet for stand users. Turns out there's an evil bow and arrow out there that can shoot people and give them stands. Jotaro quickly discovers that Josuke has the power to wield a stand called Crazy Diamond. Josuke's stand has the unique ability to restore objects and organisms to their previous state, whether it's healing wounds, repairing broken structures, or even reverting an enemy's body part in bizarre fashion. When Jotaro and Josuke learn of a violent criminal, Angelo Katagiri, terrorizing the town, they face Aqua Necklace, Angelo's fluid-based stand, capable of slipping through pipes, bodies of water, and even people's throats. After Angelo attacks Josuke's grandfather, resulting in tragedy, Josuke vows vengeance. Combining Crazy Diamond's ability to reshape matter and Jotaro's Star Platinum, they corner Angelo, fusing him into a nearby rock formation. This bizarre Angelo rock becomes a new landmark as Morio is absolutely crawling with stand users. Some good, some bad, but all weird as hell. Not long afterward, Josuke and his friends encounter Nijimura brothers, Keicho and Okuyasu. They found the bow and arrow and started turning random people into stand users. Their dad got cursed by the Joestar family's greatest vampire nemesis named Dio a long time ago, so now their dad is basically a weird green blob. The brothers think if they find the right stand, maybe they can save their dad, or at least put him out of his misery. Keicho's stand, Bad Company, is a mini army of toy soldiers, tanks, and choppers that shoot real bullets. Pretty awesome! Meanwhile, Okuyasu's stand, the Hand, which can erase space itself. Think of it like a big eraser for anything in front of it that it swipes. 1 second you're standing there, the next second you're up in his face. It's weird and terrifying, but it's also perfect for smacking around your enemies. Josuke ends up fighting with these brothers, and during the fight, Keicho gets zapped by the ghost of Angelo. Apparently even a stone-faced creeper can still cause trouble. Keicho tragically kicks the bucket, and Okuyasu decides to join Josuke as his best buddy. And guess what? They're hilarious together. Okuyasu is kind of a knucklehead, but he's a good person. Meanwhile, Koichi, a soft-spoken classmate of Josuke, ends up getting shot by the bow and arrow, because apparently everyone and their grandma gets shot by that thing. Somehow, Koichi doesn't die. Instead, he gains a stand called Echoes. At first, Echoes Act 1 can just attach silly sound effects to things. But over time, it grows stronger, leveling up, and Koichi transforms from a shy kid to a tiny hero with big guts. He's basically that friend who's quiet until you push him over the edge and he just crashes out on everybody and flips the script. As Morio continues to turn up more stand users, the gang runs into Tamami Kobayashi, whose stand, the lock, punishes people by making them feel guilty. He then uses this power to try and blackmail Koichi for accidentally running over a cat, but that doesn't really work out. Some are creepier, like Toshikazu Hazamada, whose stand surface can make living puppets that mimic real people. Josuke, Okuyasu, and Koichi then go around town beating these guys in silly but often life-threatening fights. They also get roped into comedic hijinks like messing around at the local cafe or bickering about who pays the tab. It's basically slice of life, except every slice is jam-packed with stand battles. One of the strangest encounters eventually comes Yukako Yamagishi. She's a super intense girl who has the hots for Koichi. By hots, I mean she's borderline scary. Her stand, Love Deluxe, lets her hair stretch and wrap around people, strangling them if she's feeling feisty. She kidnaps Koichi at one point, planning to train him, whatever that means, into the perfect boyfriend. Koichi's just like, I'm not built for this, and tries to get away without dying. Thankfully, Echoes evolves into Act 2, letting Koichi literally write words that cause effects, like setting things on fire. Yukako realizes Koichi might not be the weak little lamb that she thought, and she goes from psycho stalker to sort of supportive girlfriend. It's a big improvement though, trust me. Morio's hidden mysteries deepen when Joseph Joestar, now an elderly man, arrives to meet Josuke. He's super old now. He's got a cane, poor eyesight, and sometimes he forgets stuff. But hey, he's Joseph Joestar, so he's still a legend. So we gotta love him. He tries to bond with Josuke, his secret son, but it's awkward because, you know, he was never around. Plus, Joseph shows up carrying an invisible baby named Shizuka. Why is the baby invisible? Because she's got a stand that camouflages her and anything nearby. It's cute, but it's also terrifying if you think about the diapers. Skipping ahead, a successful but eccentric manga artist named Rohan Kishibe moves to Morio in search of inspiration. His stand, Heaven's Door, can open people like books, reading their memories and writing commands that they must follow. Initially, Rohan's arrogance and invasive use of Heaven's Door pits him against Koichi. But after a standoff that tests Koichi's resolve, he becomes a reluctant ally, intrigued by Koichi's sincerity. Rohan soon discovers a haunted alley and meets the ghost of Remi Sugimoto, a local girl who was murdered in the town over a decade ago. She warns him and Koichi about a serial killer who's still at large and skulking around Morio. Someone who has quietly committed gruesome murders for years without ever being discovered. The psycho in question is Yoshigaki Kira, a neat freak who looks like a model, but is actually the creepiest man alive. He loves hands, severed hands, like they're his girlfriend.
You's a freaky ass nigga!
If you think that's nasty, you're right. It's seriously messed up. Kira's stand is Killer Queen, which can turn anything into a love bomb. Imagine touching a doorknob and it explodes in your face, or picking up a piece of paper that goes boom in your hand. That's Kira's style. He's not flashy though. He wants a quiet life, free to collect his disgusting trophies. One day, Josuke and Okuyasu's buddy, Shigechi, a short dude obsessed with money, finds Kira's bag by accident. His stand Harvest is like an army of tiny bugs that pick up coins and other goodies from all over town. He notices something weird though in the bag, a woman's hand. Big mistake. He then confronts Kira and Kira blows him up. This is the moment when everyone goes, oh, bro's a crash out. We probably gotta do something about him. Kira decides to hide from Josuke, Jotaro, and the others by changing his face. He forces a beautician, who has the stand Cinderella, to do some heavy plastic surgery magic. She can reshape people's looks completely. So Kira kills some random dude named Kosaku Kawajiri and takes his appearance. Now he's living with Kosaku's wife and their son Hayato. Shinobu is like, wow, my husband is different, but she kinda liked the crazy killer vibe. She's toxic. Meanwhile, Hayato's all like, you're not my dad. So Kira is stuck playing house, hoping nobody finds him before he can slip away. At the same time, Kira's father, Yoshihiro, uses the bow and arrow to create new stand users, hoping they will protect his son. This triggers battles across Morio. Toyohiro Kanadaichi and his bizarre stand Superfly, a literal telephone transmission tower, face off against Josuke and company. After this, they then face Teranosuke Miyamoto's Enigma, which can seal people into sheets of paper by terrifying them. Rohan then challenges Ken Oyanagi, a boy whose stand, boy to man, Anybody get the reference? Whose stand steals parts of an opponent's stand during successive victories in rock, paper, scissors. These scattered conflicts test each member of the group in different ways, but they all connect back to one goal: to expose and defeat Kira once and for all. All these different fights distract Josuke and his pals from finding Kira. Meanwhile, Hayato, who's slowly piecing things together, realizes his dad is actually the psycho Kira. Kira, now cornered, unlocks the stand's deadly new power, Bites the Dust. This ability plants a mini killer queen inside Hayato, creating a time loop each time someone discovers Kira's true identity. The loop kills that person with a big explosion, then rewinds the day so it happens all over again. Each loop, Hayato remembers what happened, but nobody else does until they blow up again. But little Hayato is a sharp cookie. He uses the time loop to trick Kira. He sets up a situation where Josuke and the others catch Kira off guard at just the right moment, just before the explosion can kill them all. Big brain moves, my guy. There's a huge battle in the streets, and Kira tries to blow everyone up, but Josuke's crazy diamond keeps healing everything. And Jotaro is ready to punch Kira's face in with Star Platinum. Kira, now cornered, is fatally wounded and attempts one last bomb detonation. Kira raises his hand just as an ambulance rushes in, crushing his limbs before he can activate Killer Queen. He dies in the street and soon finds his spirit trapped in Remy's Ghost Alley. In a grim twist of oh so sweet poetic justice, she guides him towards the alley's deadly exit, where malevolent hands drag him into the afterlife, ensuring his evil can never return. With Kira defeated and the town now lifted of his curse, Jotaro and Joseph leave town, with Josuke seeing them off as the summer of 1999 comes to an end. Personally, I love this series of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This would probably be my second favorite season. It was just so quirky, all of the different stands, and especially the color palette of the animation looked so vivid to me. I really felt like this is one of the standouts in JoJo. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind was created by Hirohiko Araki. The manga was first published by Shueisha and Weekly Shonen Jump from December 11, 1995 to April 5, 1999. The anime adaptation was produced by David Production and first aired in Japan on October 6, 2018, running until July 28, 2019, totaling 39 episodes. So let's get into the story. Alright, so there's this kid named Giorno Giovanna, and he lives in Italy. Italy is pizza, pasta, and apparently a bunch of very dangerous people who like to stand around flexing. We'll get to that part later. Giorno is not your average guy, however. He's got fancy blonde hair with donuts on top. Yes, donut-shaped hair lumps, very stylish. And even though he looks all fancy, he started off pretty rough. People did not treat him well when he was little. But one day, he helped a mysterious stranger, and this random act of kindness changed his entire life. Now he's got big dreams. Actually, they're super big. He wants to become a gang star. That's a fancy way of saying, I want to rule the mafia, but I also want to be a good guy. Which, you know, is kind of like saying, I want to be a nice robber. But hey, it's anime logic, so we roll with it. Turns out, Giorno's dad is Dio, who is basically an evil vampire from the earlier parts of the JoJo series. But Dio used the body of Jonathan Joestar, so Giorno also has that Joestar blood. Confused yet? Just think of it like a big family tree with lots of weird branches. Anyway, Giorno's out there hustling on the streets of Naples. He picks pockets, rides on fancy boat rides, for free obviously, and he can also make frogs appear out of nowhere. And that's because he has a stand, an embodiment of his fighting spirit called Gold Experience, or sometimes Golden Wind. Stands are like ghostly superpowers. They can do weird stuff like punch you a million times, or bake you into a pizza if the plot demands it. Giorno's stand can give life to non-living things, turning random items into animals. So if he's bored, he can turn your shoes into a parrot, or your wallet into a tree frog. Don't question it, it's just normal in this show. Eventually, Koichi, dispatched by Jotaro Kujo, arrives in Italy to locate this mysterious young man. After witnessing Giorno's stand, and a brief chase, Koichi realizes Giorno actually wants to do good, albeit in a sneaky mafia way. So Koichi calls Jotaro and says mission accomplished, then leaves. Best cameo ever. Soon after, Giorno has a showdown with Bruno Bucciardi, a slick dude in a white suit covered in zippers. He's also part of Passion, a sick-ass mafia group. Bruno stand Sticky Fingers can unzip your limbs or even walls, turning you into a fancy handbag if he's in a bad mood. Giorno and Bruno briefly fight, but they sense each other's moral code. Turns out Bruno is also fed up with Pachone's cruelty. He'd rather see the Mafia used for justice than for terror. Giorno impresses Bruno by bamboozling him with a frog trick. From there, Bruno brings Giorno to meet Polpo, a giant Pachone capo who can flatten himself like a balloon inside a prison cell. Polpo tests new recruits by handing them a lighter and saying, keep the flame lit for 24 hours. If it goes out and you try to relight it, his shadowy stand Black Sabbath pops up and kills you. Naturally, Giorno outsmarts the system using creative nonsense. He passes and earns Polpo's approval. However, Giorno quietly frames Polpo so that ironically, he ends up dying in a weird accident. Let's not forget this is Dio's son we're dealing with. With Polpo gone, a mountain of gold belongs to Bruno's team, which now includes Giorno. This dream team is a colorful crew of misfits including Leon Abacchio, a grumpy ex-cop who lost his job due to a dark mistake, with his stand Moody Blues, which can replay past events like a ghostly VCR. Guido Mista, he's cheerful but terrified of the number 4. His stand Sex Pistols is 6 tiny bullet gremlins that talk, eat pizza crumbs, and help him shoot the shit out of bad guys. Narancia Guerrega, a scrappy teen with 0 math skills. His stand Aerosmith is a mini fighter plane that blasts baddies by tracking carbon dioxide. And Panicotta Fugo, a genius with anger issues. His stand Purple Haze unleashes a virus that melts anything, friend or foe. Not exactly easy to control. These 4 weirdos, plus Bucciardi, are now Giorno's new family. They do small errands for Pachone, then they get a new assignment. Protect a special girl named Trish Una. She's the daughter of the big boss of Pachone, a mysterious guy who no one's ever met. Everyone's like, we must protect her for unknown reasons. Meanwhile, all these assassins from within the gang itself are like, ooh, let's kidnap Trish, find out who her dad is, and take over the Mafia. Because apparently everyone in the Mafia wants a piece of that sweet, sweet power. However, other factions within Pachone want Trish for themselves. They figure if they grab the boss's daughter, it might force him out of hiding, or they can just take control. They go to Pompeii, where Narancia tangles with Formaggio, who can shrink people using his stand Little Feet, leaving Narancia tiny in a giant city, while Aerosmith fires pea-sized bullets. Then, on a fancy bullet train to Florence, they fight the duo Prosciutto and Pesci. Prosciutto's The Grateful Dead rapidly ages passengers, turning them gray-haired and frail, while Pesci's Beach Boy hooks enemies like a creepy fishing rod through floors and walls. It's zany, but Bruno's squad squeaks out victories by combining their powers and a healthy dose of luck. Abacchio's Moody Blues helps figure out hidden stand abilities by rewinding environments, and Mista's Sex Pistols keep deflecting bullets in weird angles. Narancia bombs entire cabins. It's chaos, but also it's kinda great teamwork. Eventually the group arrives in Venice, expecting to hand Trish off to her father. But guess what? The boss, known later as Diavolo, tries to kill Trish in a spooky basement hideout. He's like, no one can know my identity, not even my own daughter. Bruno, outraged, rescues Trish, though he's critically injured in the process. Something magical involving Giorno's healing keeps Bruno moving even after he should be dead. Despite the miracle, Bruno realizes the boss is pure evil, so he rallies the squad to stand against him. Fugo, however, is terrified of the entire Mafia's wrath and bails, disappearing from the storyline. Yeah, bro is cooked. The rest vow to protect Trish and stop Diavolo's reign of terror. So now, Team Bucciardi, minus Fugo, is on a mission. Find out the boss's real name, his face, and anything that can help them beat him. They learn from secret intel that Diavolo was born on the island of Sardinia, so they head there. Meanwhile, the boss is flipping out, like, oh no, my secret's getting out. Must kill them all. On Sardinia, poor Abacchio is using Moody Blues to replay the boss's past, hoping to see his real face. Diavolo and his unstoppable stand, King Crimson, show up, and Abacchio gets done in. But Abacchio's last breath carves a stone face on the ground, so they can see what Diavolo actually looks like. That's a major clue, though it costs Abacchio his life. Now, the squad is super ticked off, and they vow to avenge him. In Italy, rumors swirl that a special stand arrow can upgrade your stand to a new form called Requiem, and that might be the only way to beat King Crimson. They go to Rome chasing this arrow, and it turns out to be guarded by Jean-Pierre Polnareff, a veteran from the earlier JoJo adventures, now in a wheelchair after a brutal fight with Diavolo. He explains that the arrow can give a stand crazy new abilities, possibly powerful enough to outsmart time erasure. As they talk, Diavolo shows up again. He's got a split personality, occasionally acting as a timid alter ego, Doppio. Polnareff tries to use the arrow, but Diavolo stabs him. Polnareff's dying spirit then merges with Silver Chariot, creating Chariot Requiem, which goes wild and puts everyone to sleep. When they wake, they discover they've body swapped with each other. Chariot Requiem wanders around the city with the arrow, defending it from anyone who tries to grab it, and the entire group is in chaos. Bruno Bucciardi, who was basically living on borrowed time, senses his spirit is about to leave his body for good, but he's determined to help Giorno take down Diavolo. Diavolo tries to sneak up and erase time again, but the team finally finds a way to catch him off guard. They break Chariot Requiem's control by striking its weak point, a little bug behind its head. The arrow drops and Giorno manages to grab it. He evolves Gold Experience into Golden Experience Requiem, and this new form basically says, nah, time erasure means nothing to me, and beats the hell out of Diavolo. Mortally wounded, Diavolo falls into the river. Triss urges Giorno to look for him, but Giorno claims that it won't be necessary. Diavolo attempts to crawl into a tunnel, but is fatally stabbed by a homeless man who was under the influence of the drugs that Diavolo sells. Diavolo then keeps reliving different death scenarios as Giorno's stand threw him into an endless loop of death. With Diavolo finally defeated, Giorno and the others learn that despite his body being dead, Polnareff managed to keep his soul attached to this turtle, which Giorno decides to keep the arrow inside of for safekeeping. Mista leads the others back to the Colosseum to tend to Bucciardi's wounds, unaware of his death. In the end, we see Giorno in a spiffy black mafia suit, looking all badass. It's both cool and a bit scary, but hey, maybe he'll run the mafia in a kinder way. And that's the end of the story. Personally, I really enjoyed Golden Wind. I thought it was a cool, different take on the whole JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series, especially focusing on Dio's son. If anybody who's watched the previous series knows that we would probably expected his son to be pure evil, but flipping it that he was conceived with the body of Jonathan Joestar was really interesting to watch as a viewer. But the most important takeaway from this series is the ending theme song. Every time I close my eyes. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean was created by Hirohiko Araki. The manga was first published by Shueisha in Weekly Shonen Jump magazine from December 7, 1999 to April 8, 2003. The anime adaptation was produced by David Productions and began streaming worldwide on Netflix starting December 1, 2021. Releasing its episode in batches and totaling 38 episodes. So let's get into the story. It's 2011 and 10 years after the events of Golden Wind. Jolene Cujo is a regular 19-year-old girl until her boyfriend Romeo hits someone with his fancy car. Romeo says, "Hey Jolene, help me hide the body." And she says, okay. Because love makes people do dumb stuff. Of course, that plan goes downhill. The cops show up, and Romeo's family is rich and shady. So they frame Jolene for the crime. She goes to court where her lawyer is about as trustworthy as a raccoon in a trash can. The lawyer's like, surprise, you get 15 years in prison because the victim was alive when she and Romeo tossed him. Side note, if your BF has you catching bodies for him, maybe stop dating Florida mans. Before she gets locked away, she receives 2 gifts. Personal items from her mom, and a pendant from her estranged dad, Jotaro Kujo. When Jolene pricks her finger on it, something is unleashed, a special power that gives her a stand. It turns out the pendant was a shard from the stand arrow, which basically gives her the ability to summon a cool fighting spirit that can do mystical stuff. In her case, spin a thin strand of thread from her body, capable of enhancing her senses and attack range. But let's not get too fancy with the words yet. The prison bus is waiting. So Jolene arrives at Green Dolphin Street Prison, also called the Aquarium. Inside, Jolene befriends Hermes Costello, a tough inmate with a quick temper. Hermes also touched the arrow shard and got a stand called Kiss, which produces stickers to duplicate objects. If Hermes slaps a sticker on your phone, you now have 2 phones. Once she removes the sticker, the copies smash into each other. Boom! Talk about a weird superpower. Hermes teaches Jolene the biggest prison secret. Money buys everything. You want better food? Pay up. You want respect? Pay some more. If you can't pay, well, you might eat stale bread forever. Jolene, now stuck in this bizarre new world, has to learn fast or get wrecked by the system. Jolene's cellmate Gwes is a total wacko who can shrink people with her stand Goo Goo dolls. Gwes tries to turn Jolene into a tiny little minion, stuffing her into a dead rat. But Jolene's new power, now known as Stone Ocean, aka Stone Free, smacks Gwes around like a piñata. Jolene's not about playing games. Skipping ahead, Jolene hears from a strange boy in a baseball uniform named Emporio. He pops up out of nowhere and says, "Hey, do not go to the visitation room tomorrow." But does Jolene listen? Of course not. The next day, she goes and boom, it's her estranged daddy, Jotaro Kujo, who's come to warn her. A blind sniper named Jangali A plotted all this to get revenge on Jotaro for killing the Joestar's arch nemesis and his idol, Dio Brando. Suddenly, bullets fly from afar. Jolene and Jotaro dodge like crazy, only to be attacked by a terrifying stand called White Snake. It steals 2 discs from Jotaro's body. One holds his memories, and the other holds his stand Star Platinum. Without them, Jotaro collapses. Horrified, Jolene sends him away to the Speedwagon Foundation to keep him alive, then marches back into prison, determined to get those stolen discs and fix Jotaro, because that's what you do for family. Some clues lead Jolene to the prison's swampy farm. A rumor says White Snake's user stashes stolen stand discs and old tractor tires out there. So Jolene and Hermes join a search party, but are wearing explosive bracelets that detonate if they stray too far from the guard in the prison. They run into Foo Fighters, aka FF, a stand that's actually intelligent plankton. FF can possess dead bodies and talk, which is equal parts cool and disturbing. Tasked with guarding the discs, FF battles Jolene, but eventually respects her honor. Jolene decides to spare FF instead of stomping him out, and grateful, FF joins the team and inhabits the body of a dead inmate. FF even helps locate Jotaro's stand disc, though his memory disc is still missing. Hoping to sneak Jotaro's stand disc outside, Jolene arranges a pickup with the Speedwagon Foundation, but an inmate named Mirashan pops up, offering a bet. Can Jolene and friends toss a baseball 100 times without dropping it? Her stand, Mary Lynn Manson, enforces any debt if you lose, even ripping out organs to settle the score. Hermes, always hungry for quick cash, agrees to double or nothing. Soon, the challenge grows to 1,000 tosses, and cheating can get your liver stolen. Even when a guard tries to sabotage them, Jolene outsmarts Mirashan by letting her own stand do the final catches. Mirashan then loses, and Jolene wins her freedom, plus Hermes' organs back. Behind the scenes, the prison's head priest, Father Enrico Pucci, listens to everyone's phone calls and monitors Jolene's actions. Turns out, Pucci is White Snake's user, and a devoted follower of Dio. His big goal? Some plan about achieving heaven, which sounds sweet, but is definitely not. Jolene heads to the courtyard to finally pass Jotaro's stand disc to a Speedwagon Foundation carrier pigeon, and Father Pucci pretends to be helpful, but orders one of his minions to shoot her. As Jolene bleeds, an ally named Weather Report summons a rain of poisonous dart frogs, and frogs start dropping like the sky like gooey bullets, taking out the sniper. Though wounded, Jolene successfully delivers the disc. Pucci's plan to keep it fails, but Jolene still needs Jotaro's memory disc to save his mind. Meanwhile, Father Pucci recruits a gangster named Sports Maximum to do something shady with one of Dio's bones. Wait. Are we dealing with Father Diddy? Or Father Pucci? Talking about dig up one of Dio's bones and do something freaky with it. Hermes reveals she came to prison for revenge on Sports Max. He's a lowlife who murdered her sister. Hermes drowns him in a sewer pipe. However, his stand, Limp Bizkit, animates invisible zombies of anything dead, like gators and birds. Suddenly, Jolene, Hermes, and FF face invisible creatures gnawing at them. They manage to corner Sports Max's invisible corpse in the prison mausoleum. Hermes, furious over her sister's death, risks her own safety, letting him bite her head so that she can pinpoint his location and pummel him into dust. Then they recover Max's memory disc. Meanwhile, it turns out Pucci told Sports Max to use Dio's bone for some insane plan that's not over yet. Jolene, wanting that bone, gets transferred to the punishment ward, and a new recruit, Narciso Anasui, who is super in love with Jolene at first sight, decides to help. In the punishment ward, strange stand battles rage on. One inmate transforms after touching the bone, sprouting leaves and fusing with the environment. The bone itself morphs into a green baby bearing the Joestar birthmark, just like Jolene and the rest of her family. Elsewhere, Poochie sends stand users to eliminate Jolene. One unleashes Survivor, making everyone violently angry. Jolene battles a raging guard, deflecting meteor strikes from his stand, Planet Waves, using his own boot to take him out. Amid the chaos, she notices the weird green baby growing stronger under the sunlight. After this, Poochie orders an assassin named D&G and his stand Yo-Yo Ma after Jolene. Yo-Yo Ma acts polite, but spits acid that melts its victims. Meanwhile, FF tries to track down D&G to kill him and shut off Yo-Yo Ma's power. FF corners D&G, only to find Father Poochie. Uh-oh. FF realizes Poochie is White Snake, aka Pale Snake in the dubs, user. Before FF can phone a friend, Poochie boils the water FF needs to live, killing FF. Meanwhile, the green baby fuses with Poochie after he recites 14 weird phrases he learned from Dio. Poochie evolves, escaping Jolene's grasp yet again. Jolene tries to beat him, but he distracts her by throwing Jotaro's memory disk at a dying Anasui. She has to choose, let her die or chase Poochie. She saves Anasui, so Poochie gets away. Damn it, Jolene, you're too nice. Jolene's like, enough prison, I gotta chase that priest. The prison's head guard, Mew Mew, stands in her way. Mew Mew's stand, Jailhouse Lock, scrambles short-term memory so you can only remember 3 pieces of info at once. She writes notes, draws pictures, anything to stay focused. Eventually, she spots Mew Mew, knocks her out, and ends the mind scramble. Finally, Jolene, Hermes, and Emporio escape Green Dolphin Street Prison. At the same time, Anasui and Weather Report also leave. Their goal is simple, to stop Father Poochie from whatever madness he's planning at Cape Canaveral. On the road, we find out Poochie ran into 3 shady guys in a hospital. Surprise, they're Dio's sons! Because Dio apparently started a daycare for future villains. The secret sons of Dio include Ungalo and his stand Bohemian Ecstatic, aka Bohemian Rhapsody. It brings fictional characters to life, fairy tales, cartoons. If you recognize them, they can drag you into the stories. Weather Report uses a clever trick by inventing a brand new character that sucks all others back into their fictional worlds, freeing people from the mess. Raquel and his stand Sky High controls mysterious rods that siphon body heat. Jolene beats him by literally setting herself on fire and punching him until he cracks. He babbles about Poochie's unstoppable destiny. And the final son, Donatello versus, and his stand, Netherworld, which digs up memories of past events, like plane crashes, and forces people to relive them. Jolene and Hermes get trapped in a 2005 crash memory, but survive thanks to clever illusions and Emporio's research. Cornered, Versus tries a final trick, returning Weather Report's stolen memories, hoping Weather's full power will cause chaos. Now remembering everything, Weather becomes moody and dangerous. Years ago, he was switched at birth and turned out to be Poochie's fraternal twin. Worse, he accidentally dated Poochie's younger sister, Perla.
Oh no!
He did what? A tragedy that eventually led to Perla's death. Weather's rage awakened unstoppable snail-based powers, which begin turning bystanders into snails if they see rainbows. Poochie blinds himself to dodge the rainbow effect and battles Weather. Weather nearly kills him with frozen blood spikes, but Jolene's sudden arrival distracts him. Father Poochie exploits that moment to stab Weather, killing his brother. Poochie then heads to continue his final plan at Cape Canaveral. With Weather's death, Jolene collects her father's memory disk at last. She gives it to the Speedwagon Foundation, reviving Jotaro, who rushes to help. Together, Jolene, Jotaro, Hermes, Anasui, and Emporio head to Cape Canaveral, where Poochie's stand evolved into Sea Moon, capable of warping gravity. Standing near him can turn your body inside out, but Jolene avoids this by making her stand Stone Ocean form endless loops called Mobius strips. Each time Sea Moon tries to invert her, the loops reset. Girl's got the best geometry skills ever. Poochie then evolves his stand further into Made in Heaven, which speeds up time for the entire universe. Days pass in seconds. oceans swirl like blenders. Poochie's so fast that Jotaro can't fully stop him, even with Star Platinum the world. He kills Jotaro, Hermes, and gravely wounds Anasui. Jolene then sacrifices herself, tying Emporio to a dolphin so he can escape. As time accelerates to the end of reality, the universe resets. Emporio wakes up in a slightly different version of Green Dolphin Street Prison. But Jolene, Jotaro, and the others are replaced by weird duplicates with new names. Poochie appears, declaring this new universe perfect because everyone knows their fate. He tries to kill Emporio to then tie up any loose ends. But Emporio has one final trick, Weather Report's stand disc. He slots it in, gaining Weather's powers, filling the room with pure oxygen. He poisons Poochie at hyperspeed. Poochie panics, begs Emporio to stop, but Emporio stands firm. Sorry buddy, your weird cosmic meltdown plan ends here. Poochie then dies, and so does his newly created universe. Time then resets again, this time without Father Poochie. We find Emporio at a gas station where he meets a kind girl named Irene, who looks just like Jolene. She has the Joestar mark on her shoulder too, but no memory of the previous universe. With her are people resembling Hermes and Anasui. They happily offer Emporio a ride, suggesting they are going to meet Irene's father. And that is the end of the story and the beginning of a new universe. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to stand the like button, stick or subscribe, and the bell icon so you never miss another update. Until next time, peace.